man, this week 3 slate was just incredible. I thought going into the week that looking at the schedule, I'm like, man, this is going to be a great week. There are a couple of upsets that I personally saw coming that nobody else really saw coming. And we're going to touch on at least one of them. And there's also going to be a bunch of close games, and we're still watching this late game slate. This is going to be a little bit more of a raw, just live reaction type of video. The late game slate going on right now. Cal up on Minnesota 10-7 early in the third quarter. Boston College, Stanford tied 20 apiece. Arizona State getting their get back on Texas State. Portland State and Hawaii still in the first quarter, and Fresno's putting it to Southern. That's what's going on in the late night slate right now as I'm recording, so it gives you a good idea that I am recording at 12:30 a.m. on Sunday. So I guess late Saturday night in most regions in the United States. But for everybody new around here, my name is Colin Bashnagel, the host here at Bash's College Football Show. Go and check me out over on TikTok if you just look up Bash's CFB Show. I've been reacting over there all day long. We got some big games to talk about. We're also just going to generally go through the slate. And then, we're going to just kind of recap the day. I'm going to review what Walk That Line provided us this week. And this is how I'm going to try to structure these videos. Every single Sunday, you should be able to see this. I'm going to try to do it at the end of a college football night while the late games are on. I got a quad screen right over here to my right. Texas State, Arizona State, Utah State, and Air Force. And then I got Minnesota Cal, Boston College, Stanford right over there. All right, let's talk about some of these games, and we're going to start with the nightcap. This is painful for a lot of Notre Dame fans out there. 41-40. Tyler Buchner, the former starting quarterback, on the hold at the end of the game, and he messes up. Almost makes something out of it, but he messes up. And it ends up being Nate Borkircher who comes up with the game-winning catch. But if you take a look at the stats here, it's very interesting. Marcel Reed, 17 of 37, below 50%. But the problem is when he was efficient, big plays happen. 360 yards, big plays to Mario Craver in particular, but you also had Casey Concepcion. But if you had not watched Mario Craver at Mississippi State, you saw tonight the dynamic playmaking ability that he has and why you could be so high on him. I thought CJ Carr looked pretty solid again tonight, almost 300 yards passing, efficient, 20 of 32. Jeremiah Love had a $147. JD Price had 68 on the ground. It's just, man, this is a loss that, first off, you can make the argument that both of these losses, and this is something that Notre Dame fans never thought they would see watching what they had coming back and watching what they saw last year. You could blame these two losses on the defense, and especially this one. The explosive plays were absolutely ridiculous. They didn't get penalties the way that Texas A&M did, but the timely penalty at the end of the game on Christian Gray was massive. Leonard Moore getting banged up, I think, was a turning point there. And then Adon Schuler getting ejected for targeting. I think that was a big moment, too, that we can't ignore. Texas A&M, I think they got very fortunate to win on the road here, but sometimes it takes a lot of fortune to win on the road in college football. But Notre Dame, man, you're going to feel like two got away from you. You saw how efficient that offense could play in the fourth quarter against Miami. That one slipped. The sky wasn't falling, knowing, though, that you were one loss away from that sky falling. That's where they were last year. But this year, different story. They bounce back and go 10-2. I don't think they have enough meat on the schedule, on the bone, to be able to go to the college football playoff. We'll see what the AP poll says about them, but man, this was a devastating loss. And for Texas A&M, I mean, you're talking about a program that's been knocking on the door of, can we take that next step? Can we take that next step? Well, guess what? This was a massive step in the right direction. You got a significant out-of-conference victory that could basically set you up for the rest of the season. And I think that Texas A&M needs to take this win. They were not the better team tonight. I firmly believe that, and that's fine. They are able to compete with just about anybody in the country. You take this win and you build off it. Because though you weren't the best team tonight and you got fortunate and ended up winning, doesn't mean that you can't become a better team off of this with momentum and lessons being learned, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because it did not look clean for Texas A&M on that side of the ball whatsoever. Now, earlier in the day, you had the fire drill heard around the world. Georgia Tech beats Clemson, and this is one where I'm going to kind of champion me being right. I told everybody, first off, I predicted Clemson to lose these exact two games in the preseason. And I want to go back to the YouTube comments section probably tomorrow, just out of entertainment, to see if I had any comments. They're not losing to both LSU and Georgia Tech. Well, that's what happened. This Clemson team started to figure things out when it came to running the football. Started to figure a little bit out when it comes to the offense. I think they're going to actually be all right. Like, I am somewhat encouraged by what I saw from Clemson in the second half, because they were dead to the world after that first half performance. I am very impressed with both of these teams and the way that they battled, the way that Clemson battled back. And I could take this opportunity to just point and laugh at Clemson like I want to do. But I don't want to do that too much, because that's going to discredit what Georgia Tech has done. And people are talking about them potentially being a playoff contender. I still don't think Clemson's out of this thing. I think that they have enough on their schedule, and they still have a path to an ACC championship. Two things Notre Dame, who we just talked about, doesn't have for them to make up for two early season losses. Notre Dame doesn't have that. So I don't know if Notre Dame can actually make up for these two signature losses. I get it was by a walk-off field goal and it was by a walk-off extra point, essentially. It doesn't matter. You gotta win some big games. In Clemson, you gotta win big games. To me, you could see it. These rankings are my rankings. I had Georgia Tech at 19. This was a top 20 matchup in my brain. That's how I viewed it when I watched it today. And I think more people should have given Georgia Tech the respect going into the game, but now they will. Now they will. This Georgia Tech team is gritty. An experienced secondary that flies around. An experienced linebacker in Kyle Eifert. Strong on both lines of scrimmages. I mean, no image displays Georgia Tech football better than Kalen Rutledge. Bloody nose. Blood going everywhere. As graphic as it sounds. Let's just stuff something up there. We're getting back out there. Let's go. We're going to go maul somebody over. Haynes King, I don't know how he's going to stay healthy all season, and that's going to be a concern for me, but my goodness, is he tough and everything you want in a leader and in a true championship level mindset is what Haynes King has. I'm excited to watch Georgia Tech the rest of the year. I think Clemson's still actually going to be all right. Like I said, I'm more encouraged from Clemson's offense from that second half than I have been all season. So there is at least something to build on. Speaking of another point where I was right about a team. Boy, oh boy. Look, you can make all the excuses in the world, South Carolina fans, that Lenoris was hurt and Nick Harbor pulled up lame and Dylan Stewart just had a bad day and got ejected. Yeah. But the problem with this team is that's all you got. All you got is the hope that Nick Harbor will piece it together. The hope that Lenora Sellers can be consistent enough. The hope that Dylan Stewart is effective against this style of an offense in a run-heavy offensive attack as he is in a pass rush situation. You got 3 players with great potential. And beyond that, I'm not sure what you have. I'm not sure how good they are. I know they're at least solid, but in the SEC playing against these coaches that are in this league. Vanderbilt just proved to you what it really is to be a solid team all around, not just a couple of stars that you're trying to hang your hat on and put a Superman cape on Lenore Sellers. Because guess what? You put a Superman cape on Lenore Sellers, he goes down in injury. It's football. It sucks. I know. I'm not wishing that on anybody. You don't have anything. This Vanderbilt team took your lunch money tonight. Vanderbilt deserves all of our respect. South Carolina got way more respect than they deserved. And as you can see, again, by my rankings this week, I had Carolina ranked 22. Not 11, not 8, not up enormously high. I had them ranked 22nd. And the only reason I had them ranked 22nd was to compromise with the public. I had picked Vanderbilt. I locked up Vanderbilt. We're going to talk about walk that line here in a little bit. I knew Vanderbilt was going to go on the road to Williams-Brice and beat this team. And not only did they beat them, they dominated this football team. This was not a domination, though. This was one of the best games of the day. Georgia, Tennessee, just, oh man, we got to talk about some things here. So, Georgia, this is the first real time that you have seen Georgia's secondary and Georgia's defense's youth really catch up to them. Kirby Smart, in the last 8 years, has done a great job of getting young players on the field, but now it seems like they're a little bit over-reliant on that, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. They really struggled in the secondary. They did. And I'm going to tell you what I mean here. Joey Aguilar, stats look incredible. 24 of 36, 371 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Here's the problem. You go back and watch that game. A couple of the big plays that were made from Tennessee, and in particular, you had one big catch that I remember from Chris Brazzell. I think the other one was Braylon Staley. Might have been Brazzell again. 2 balls from Joey Aguilar that were not very good balls. And it was a house goal anyway. The receiver made a play. The DB really made a terrible play. It was not a good play by the DB in both situations. And Tennessee ended up scoring on big strikes. My worry for Tennessee is because of the youth in the secondary and the lack of ability to actually play the ball and be able to play the receiver. Georgia's got a lot to learn and a lot of growth that's going to happen through the year, and improvement that's going to happen in the secondary. What I saw from Tennessee today is just going to give them a false confidence that that play is always going to be there. Even though Joey Aguilar is not the most accurate with the football. There were multiple opportunities for interceptions that Georgia just simply did not capitalize on. And they still got 2. Joey Aguilar is still the same player we saw at App State, just with more talent around him. This offensive line is much better than I gave them credit for. I love this running back by committee that Tennessee has. This defense is going to play better when they get healthier. Joey Aguilar is going to be a problem. You don't see it yet because he went off today. Turn the tape on. If you know football, watch this game over again tomorrow or Monday or Tuesday and tell me you don't see the same problem I see with the just let it all loose, gunslinger, reckless mentality of Joey Aguilar, because I think that is going to catch up to Tennessee yet again later this year. I'm still impressed with Tennessee. I still think when they get healthy on the defense, they're going to be really good. I still think that they are going to exceed the expectations that I set for them. I still think they're better than what I expected. But that quarterback's going to be a problem for them. USF. It was cute while it lasted. Look, when you watch USF in the first two games, there's a little bit of flukiness and just a little bit of stuff where you're just kind of like, this is not going to be sustainable. And that ended up being the case here. Byron Brown, 20 of 36, 274. Did get a little bit going through the air. But this team, when it came to running the football, they were not able to do it super consistently against this Miami team, and they abandoned it super quickly. I mean, you're talking about running backs that I can count right here. They got 12 carries combined between their top three, Sam Franklin, Cart Norton, and then also Alvin Isaac. Like I said, it was a cute story while it lasted, but this Miami team is the real deal, and they're much more the real deal than Boise State in Florida. More on Florida in a second, but we saw that Florida still a mess, right? And that game, and I think I said this, I hope I said this on whether it was a TikTok or on YouTube, that game between Florida and USF said more about the dysfunction of Florida than the good ability of USF. Not that USF is bad. I think their defense is much improved, but like, for goodness sakes, you put them into the playoff, they play a team like Miami, this is what's going to happen. You're going to see 576 yards of total offense. You're going to see Carson Beck throw for 340. You're going to see Mark Fletcher run for $145. It is what it is. The talent gap is massive, and we all know this. And also, side note, I made a comment on TikTok about gimmicky offenses. Alex Golish runs the same gimmicky offense as Tennessee. Do you really think when you go up against a team that has more talent and is well coached, you're going to be able to make that work? Tennessee makes it work once a year. Once a year. It catches a talented defense that's well coached off guard. And I would argue that Georgia is just young. I would argue that Alabama just had major discipline problems when they were able to do what they did 3 years ago to Alabama and Tennessee. USF beat Florida because of Florida's own dysfunction and not because of how good they are. USF is a cute story. USF's going to be a good team in the American. I never thought they weren't. I believe I picked them to finish third behind Navy and Tulane. And yet, that could still happen. Just you wait. Very, very impressed with Miami. This game kind of went the way I expected it to go, not going to lie. I just was a little bit scared that I was wrong about USF. I wanted to be proven right here, but there you go. And for, if you know, you know, that ratings update that I've been asking about, still want it, but I can temper it down a little bit. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. Final game to talk about here. The Florida Gators went on the road to LSU. A very tough situation to be in the holding call on a 90-yard busted play touchdown. Just devastating to Florida in this game, and that just changed things. But at the end of the day, you still see the same mistakes from DJ Lagway. Look, the bottom line with the Florida Gators, the biggest issue that we have over here is you have allegedly a top 10 quarterback. I mean, he was a top 10 quarterback pick, Anthony Richardson. He didn't show any improvement in college. Now you got DJ Lagway, highly touted recruit. I'm very high on the talent of DJ Lagway. The problem is he looks no different than the first time I laid eyes on him. I thought when you say that this guy has been physically unable to throw, he's going to be in the meeting room, in the film room, studying his craft and becoming a master of the game. I don't see that. What has this kid been doing when he was out injured, not able to throw the football. I don't know. This LSU offense, I'm still waiting for it to click. The talent is clearly there. It flashed every single time you've watched him play this year, and this is the third game, the third sample size. It flashes for sure, but for whatever reason, LSU just can't put it together consistently. I'm still waiting for that to happen because I'm worried that it's going to catch up to maybe the best team in the conference. The best team, at least from a talent perspective or just an all-togetherness. They have clearly fixed all the issues on the defensive side of the ball. And I was kind of thinking going into the season that they would be very close to it if they don't have it all figured out. Because of everything that they added and how athletic they seem to be, they play like it on defense. And I think this defense is the real deal. They are going to be probably a top 15 defense, top 20 defense, maybe even top 10. This offense needs to put together a little bit more consistency for me to truly buy them to win the national championship, because I think there is not many teams that if LSU can click on offense, we'll be able to beat this team. I don't think they're out there. I think that LSU will have a good chance to win the national championship if they could just do that. Guys, this day has been very incredible, and we got some other notable results to talk about, just a little bit more takeaways. I mean, first off, incredible game between Arkansas and Ole Miss. Ole Miss was able to hold on. Taylor Green definitely looks like a much better player than he did 2 years ago. And it's great to see the improvement from him, because Arkansas looks like they might be a little bit of a feisty team, might be dangerous. Hey, Notre Dame. We're over here talking about a situation where you win out and go 10-2. And then what's that going to look like? You still got to do it, and you still got to go to Arkansas. They're going to be a dangerous team. Ole Miss, though, another gritty win. This was another one of those games that it just feels like Ole Miss would lose last year. I don't know if I'm crazy, but it looks like they're starting to manage these games a little bit better over there. Lane Kiffin doing a heck of a job. Other results. Guys, Iowa State might not be as legit as we gave them credit for. Think about the resume that they have right now. We don't know what Iowa is, and we know they're limited on offense still, even if they're improved. And Kansas State looks like a disaster right now. Absolute disaster. 1-3. Lost to Army, where they only touched the ball for 3 minutes in the second half. Losing to Arizona, where they got just dominated in the first half of that game and was very lucky to have a shot towards the end of that game. Iowa State goes out there and looks just abysmal against Arkansas State on the road in Jonesboro, I know, but you saw that Arkansas team that I just talked about blow them out on a neutral site. And it was a neutral site. You could say it was an Arkansas home game. You could say whatever. It was a neutral site. I mean, Little Rock. Pretty much right in between Fayetteville and Jonesboro. All right. That was not a very fun game that Iowa State put together. How about this? Penn State, you might put up 52. You're not fooling me. You are not fooling me. You look like the same old Penn State. And by the way, Trey Wallace, not good enough, right? He's doing pretty well for himself over at Ole Miss. And I always thought that he's had it in him. The problem is you have that head coach, who's a wide receiver guy, by the way, and James Franklin. You have that quarterback who comes up small in big games. They got a big game coming up. We'll see. I am not buying this Penn State team right now. I think they're the same thing that they have been for the last few years, and experience doesn't necessarily change that. And the opponent that they're going to be playing, look, Oregon, it was a sleepwalk spot there, and it was a backdoor cover with Northwestern too. Like, and Oregon should have covered the spread. They were up 34-7, and it closed at 26.5. They would have covered by a half point. It wouldn't have been pretty. They allowed the late cover. It was devastating to me and some buddies, but I think this Oregon team, a sleepwalk spot, and they have the Civil War next week. I'm going to be very curious to see how they handle Oregon State, because Oregon State looks like a disaster. Another result there, like Texas Tech just demolishing Oregon State, which Texas Tech looks like the real deal out there, by the way. Alabama takes it to Wisconsin at home. That was predictable, right? Look, all these people going out there saying Alabama's got their mojo back. Oh, watch out for Alabama. They're rearing their head again. Please. This is dumb narrative stuff. I got to see a little bit more from Alabama. I'm not saying it's not possible because I was very, very, very high on Alabama in the preseason. But I saw what I saw against Florida State. And when the going gets tough, it gets rough for Alabama when it comes to discipline and making plays and effort and hustle and all of that the mental games in a tough spot. Alabama is not a very mentally tough team. They just aren't. Wisconsin is just that bad, though. Wisconsin might be the second worst team in the Big Ten, only behind Northwestern. Yeah, Purdue looks better than them right now. Now, granted, MTSU did just beat Nevada and made me eat my words a little bit, but I do not think very highly of MTSU. They were really struggling with that team. I don't think Miami, Ohio is all that good of a MAC team. They really struggled to pull away from them. I think Danny O'Neal is not an answer at quarterback, and they want to get Billy Edwards Jr. back at the quarterback spot because he's the better option, even if he's not the greatest option out there. This Wisconsin team, they present some problems as far as identity, but at the end of the day, I don't even think that team's making a bowl game. So touting this as like a Alabama is back type of moment, no. Final result to talk about. We got to ask, is Brett Pry going to get fired like tomorrow? I think so. Old Dominion was always going to have a puncher's chance in this game. Old Dominion was probably the side to play. Playing their money line would have probably been a smart move. They got blown out in Blacksburg against Old Dominion. Colton Joseph, great player. Love watching him play. I think this Old Dominion team is much better than the past couple of years, what we've seen from Old Dominion. That's all well and fine, but losing to Old Dominion is one thing, and we've seen that from Virginia Tech. Getting blown out 28-0 at halftime, looking completely unprepared after losing your first 2 games of the season. He's got to go, and he's got to go now. Ask Frank Beamer, come in, finish off the season for us. And if he says no, ask Bud Foster. This is getting old, and I'm done with it. Look, I thought last year was a chance for him to finally break out. And it really was. On paper, it really was. They had guys like Felton and Jalen Lane and Kyron Jones was back at quarterback and he flashed. And Byshul Tootin was a really good running back. And they had a secondary with Dorian Strong and Mansour Delane, who, by the way, looks great at LSU. And yet they were a mess last year, too. Just not as many people talked about it. They got to get rid of him. And they got to do it tomorrow. It's bad. It's bad out there. Walk that line. We're walking that line here. Let's review it. Alabama minus 20.5. Was never really a sweat. They covered 1-0. Buffalo minus 23.5. They almost lost to Kent State. I'll give Kent State a lot of credit too. They do not look like the worst team in FBS right now. That belongs to their crosstown rival in Akron right now, but Kent State looked pretty good today against a defense I have respect for, and I did not think Buffalo played their best game. I certainly didn't. I think when the going got tough for Buffalo turned it around. They looked good, but yeah, this game did not go how I thought it would go, and a lot of credit goes to Kent State for that. So we're 1-1 there. Clemson, Georgia Tech, under 52.5. They scored a total of 45. So we're 2-1 right there. Missouri, 52-10, dominated Louisiana. We're 3-1 at this point. Texas Tech, 45-14. We're 4-1 through slide 1. And we got to get that record fixed, man. And that's what we're doing here. 4-1 right now. We're 5-1. Man, holy cow, North Texas. What was I don't know what side to say, like what side to bring this up with. What was that North Texas like? Where was that the whole game last week against Western Michigan until you pulled it out? And then Wazoo, what was that? Yikes. 5-2. I said, by the way, if it's 5-2 now because Liberty just lost to Bowling Green. They just lost to Bowling Green. It's all right. Jamie Chadwell, I don't know what we're doing over there. I was high on you going into the season. Relatively no. For what Liberty has been, no, I was not super high, but I was still thinking, okay, they're going to be at the top of the conference. Brother, they look terrible. They look terrible. Still haven't gotten an FBS win. And they played two teams that aren't supposed to be very good at the FBS level. I am not going to be touching Liberty again. In fact, I might be fading Liberty if Vegas doesn't adjust next week. So Nevada -9.5. Oh, this was another L. So back-to-back L's right here. We're going 5-3. That's rough. Yeah, Nevada lost this game outright. I don't really know how, and it kind of makes me upset because I was really rooting for Nevada this year and Jeff Choate, but whatever. I mean, congrats to MTSU and Nick Viato over there. I still don't like MTSU because of how they treated Rick Stockstill, but here we are. They beat Nevada when I put 9.5 or laid 9.5 with Nevada. We got our get back, though. Don't you worry. East Carolina disposed of the pathetic mess that is Tim Beck at Coastal Carolina. Go hire the other Tim Beck at Vanderbilt. I'm just saying. -9.5 was an easy play. It didn't matter. It started as like 5.5, and when I saw it at 9.5 last night, I was like, I'm still laying it. This Coastal team's really bad, and 38-0 kind of displays that. Georgia Southern, shout out to them. They hold on. Get a big win by a touchdown back at home in Statesboro. I mean, this was a very, very good game. I'm excited to go back and watch it later this week. Congrats to Georgia Southern. They needed that win really bad because this is a team that can really compete for the Sun Belt Championship this year. They needed to get right, especially offensively, and they did that against Jack State. So, real quick, let's count it up. We are 7-3. We are now 8-3. Southern Miss +3.5. This was an underdog that I really liked on the money line. There were 3 of them. I went 2 for 3 on those. So if you played all 3 of those money lines with the plus odds, you would have been up money if you played the same amount. And that's exactly what I did. So I'm okay with Duke being terrible. I'm really not because, like, what was that? But I'll give Tulane a lot of credit in that game. And Jake Retzloff looked really good in that game too. I really shouldn't have done that. That was like a kind of a system play. It was a revenge spot wrapped in a bounce back spot. Also, it was just the data I was getting shown that was pointing to Duke, and I decided to take it, really not firmly believing that. And I think that's the only play that I really had with Duke +1.5, where I didn't firmly buy it, but I kind of trusted the process a little bit too much on that one. So I probably should have stayed away from that one. I didn't, and I'm going to hold the L for that. That's the 4th L, but the rest of these hit. Navy was a sweat. But they ended up pulling away in the second half and made it worth a while. Vanderbilt +3 was never in doubt. I always thought they would win the game, and sure enough, they did. Same with Southern Miss. I always thought they were better than App State, and Vegas wasn't valuing them enough. Now, the one that was a real sweat, and we got very lucky with the backdoor cover, was Utah. That was very nice. Thank you, Utah, for scoring that late touchdown. 31-6 was the final score over there in Wyoming. It was kind of an ugly game. Not a good game for the Utah offense. They put it together in the second half, found something. They're very creative with personnel. With the way that they use, I'm drawing a blank on his name, number 10. They move him around the field all the time, though. And then the way that they're using two-way players now. I mean, you're seeing Lander Barton line up as a tight end. That's pretty cool. We went 11-4 this week and walked that line, meaning that this record right here is about to jump up to 27-27. So after a 7-18 week one, we have already made up the ground. We learned our lessons from week one, and we are bouncing back in a big way. And I am super excited about that. This is definitely a longer format video. I'm definitely not used to doing this long of a video, and this is not going to be a regular for the like during the week type of videos. Releasing the top 25 tomorrow night is the plan. Probably a little bit before or right around the kickoff of Sunday Night Football for the NFL. But this was a fun day in college football. You can expect for a lot of the recaps to be this way. And then a lot of the other videos will be between, let's say, 6 to 20 minutes. So that's what you're going to get from me. But thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you guys tomorrow when I publish my top 25.